everyone. We're going to have a small panel debate discussing what is digital transformation. So these lovely people would hopefully get a bit more clarity about that, or get you more confused. We'll see. But I think it's going to be a fun 35, 40 minutes. I could just quickly introduce myself before I introduce our 5 panelists. So I'm Nina. I'm from Copenhagen. I'm working at Rainmaking, a consultancy where we build our own startups and ventures. I head up 2 of our ventures where I work with Danske Bank, and that's also why I'm here today. So our venture that we're running here in Northern Ireland is the Hub.io, helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses by helping them with funding and recruitment. So today we also have 5 lovely panelists, and I'm just going to sit down here, so I'm actually on the eye level here. Let me just start with Vicky here on my left. So Vicky is the Managing Director of Strategy and Corporate Development at Danske Bank UK. And Danske Bank, hopefully most of you know, is Northern Irish's biggest bank. Vicky is an award-winning experience leader, named the Banker of the Year at the Women in Finance Awards in Ireland last year, 2018, and she is the first ever female executive director to join the board of the bank. Give a high welcome to Vicky. Then we also have Trevor, from number 2, from the right here. Trevor is the Senior Digital Director at GSMA. Trevor is responsible for the strategy and development of a global portfolio of digital platforms, including the mobile industry events, MVC in Barcelona, Shanghai, and LA, as well as the award-winning Mobile World Live, the GSMA live TV broadcast and news service. Give a warm welcome to Trevor. Then we also have Giancarlo on the far left of my side. He's the CEO of Unosquare. Giancarlo worked his way up the ladder of Unosquare, where he today steers the multi-million-dollar organization, helping industry leaders within banking, finance, insurance, life science, and high-tech, reaching new heights through digital transformation, among other business areas. Give a warm welcome. Then we also have Ian here, heading up marketing at Start Sports. It's the world's leading provider of GPS performance analysis with B2B clients like Manchester United, Liverpool, and Juventus, as well as a number of federations, for instance, Northern Ireland, England, Germany, and Brazil. Recently, they also entered the B2C market. Give a warm welcome to Ian. And last but not least, we have Gareth. I'm co-founder and CEO of Kairos, but probably also better known as the founder of Digital DNA. It's really good to have you on board here as well. So hopefully all of you know pretty well what Digital DNA is, but otherwise just do a recap. So it's the leading technology conference here in Northern Ireland, and this year we expect 3,000 participants. Gareth is in general very involved in social and civic initiatives, but last year Gareth also co-founded Kairos, a sports technology company working with, for instance, Sacramento Kings, Manchester United, Northern Ireland FA, and Ireland Rugby, focus on streamlining, planning, aggregating data, and optimizing the performance of elite athletes. Give a warm welcome to Gareth. So let's dig into this buzzword, digital transformation, and maybe do a bit less mystery around it. So if we just start actually asking you what is digital transformation actually to you and your organization. Vicky, do you want to start?
Thanks, Nina. Thank you very much for inviting me on the panel today. So I work for Danske Bank UK, and banking seems like a very traditional, albeit some might say boring industry, but it's actually one that's hugely changing really, really fast and being digitized. I don't know if you can remember, but it's only 8 years since the advent of mobile banking, and if you wanted to know how much money you had in your account, you had to wait for your monthly statement, or you had to go to an ATM and do the little teleprinter and get your last 6 transactions. And now we have completely seen a digital revolution in the bank, which is digitizing processes and making things easier. So that's, for me, what digital transformation is, making things easy for customers to go about their day-to-day business. And at the bank, I feel we've done the easy stuff, but we've got a lot more to do. One of the things that we've set up recently is what we call customer journey teams. So people who are relentlessly focused on key interactions you might have with the bank. So opening an account or getting your first mortgage. And what we found is really working for us is setting teams of people who are focused day in, day out, relentlessly on taking the paper down, moving everything onto digital channels. And we hope through that we're really going to improve the customer experience.
Cool. And Giancarlo, if I can ask you, what does digital transformation mean to you and your clients?
So I think it's important to understand the difference between digitization and digital transformation, right? So a lot of businesses today are just digitizing what they do, what they have generally done. Digital transformation, Start Sports is a good example of that. You know, digital transformation is changing fundamentally the way we do something, right? So fundamentally through technology, changing the way that we access a market, the logistics of it, the analytics of it. So the first thing to me is understanding that piece, because both have their own space in what we do. So digitization is just as important, if not more important, to bring to the, to this connected world, every business. But digital transformation is about changing that fundamental of how to do business, right? So we see it in a lot of places with our different clients. Finance is a great place to see it, great industry to see it. Healthcare, a bunch of different things, but just having that foundation of differential foundation is very important, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And Trevor, if I can ask you the same?
Almost the same sort of thing, really. We been lucky enough to be in the events industry with GSMA for about 20 years, so we've been at the center of a digital climate anyway. About 15 years ago, we moved our event into Barcelona, and we took on the event ourselves. And then we realized that we needed that digital transformation, even back then. It was important for us, actually, that our leadership team understood that it wasn't just about the technology. We didn't want to improve the technology to fix the same problems. We needed to strategize those. And so we worked with a framework, understanding ourselves, our customers, as in our delegates and our attendees, our competition, and what was available in the market. And we started from there and moved forward with the transformation that we have today. So.
Cool. And Ian and Gareth, you're both actually born digital and really trying to move into particularly a B2B business, but also recently B2C. And traditionally sports, it's about the ball and a man. It's not very digital. Today it's very digital. But maybe, Ian, you can start what it actually means to
Yeah, no problem. First of all, thanks for having me again. For us, it was very much a case of we were taking a new product in terms of digital transformation into sports clubs, professional elite teams. So previously to us being there, it was a case of coaches, first team coaches, had opinions on players' physical performance. What we were then allowed to do was basically deliver the data of that player's physical performance. So instead of thinking, Ryan Giggs has done all right today, or Lee Sharp's done not so bad, we were delivering actual data in terms of the managers and the coaching staff were then able to sort of use for their own kind of tactics, basically. So that was a game changer in the industry itself. At the time, again, it is a very old school industry. At the time, there's still an element of coach knows best. However, what we find now, of the 20 teams in the Premier League, they all use GPS because it works, just in making sure that that player is match ready for the weekend, but also tracking their performance on match day as well, basically. So we kind of brought it into the industry. It's been adopted, and it's been adopted because it works. The only other thing to say on our standpoint is that obviously we were providing data, but that still needs to be interpreted. So it was around the time of sports sciences on the acceleration up curve. So this data was giving the sports scientists exactly what they needed to then make on-field decisions. Okay?
Yeah, cool.
So for us, I guess, I think what Giancarlo said, there's digitization and digital transformation, and I think that's the soundbite so far. We're slightly different, I guess, from the Danskes or the GSMAs that have been around for a while, where they've got a business model and they look at technology and how they can utilize that to transform. We were slightly, I think the technical expression around here is arse about face. What we had was Andrew, who was an elite athlete, and Andrew had a problem. And the problem that he had was that in a world where elite sport was changing, where talent was no longer enough, Andrew wanted to work out how could he, as an individual athlete, start to own his performance better. So what we went and looked at was what else was out there in the market that would allow an athlete to plan, to understand what it is that makes them perform on a consistent basis. And we realised that there's lots of solutions out there. There's things like what Ian and the team would do at Stat Sports, which gives the coaches insight into how the player performs. But there's very little that allowed the athlete to understand their own performance and therefore make it better. So we took that as a problem, and then we looked into how could technology actually provide a solution to that. And that's where we've got to. So digital transformation for us is slightly different in that we're arguably trying to digitally transform how elite athletes actually operate and starting to get a little bit of traction with that.
Yeah. So it seems to be like everyone really agree that this is super important. It's here to stay, like either for yourself, like as a corporate really trying to do new old methods in a new way, or doing it for the clients. But we're not really there yet, so there must be barriers before we really get to the place where we want to be. What do you see as the barriers? Anyone can actually ping in. What do you see as the barriers in Danske Bank?
Yeah, well, maybe I guess the context for us is a traditional industry transforming. So the barriers for us really, I'd say, are twofold. Firstly, operating and using digital methods is actually is not for everyone. We have 500,000 customers here in Northern Ireland, young, old, digital savvy, and not digital savvy. So our challenge is to take everybody with us on the journey, educate those who are less confident in terms of getting them comfortable. So my 75-year-old dad who feels that banking on your iPad is a complete no-no, we've still got to work on him. We need to take those kind of customers with us, and we also need to recognize that customers like alternatives, still walking into a branch, still phoning somebody up. So I think we need to take customers with us. The other barrier and the other thing that we need to crack is taking our staff with us. Because in a traditional industry, people are used to doing the same things the way they've always done. And some of our staff are incredibly keen to adopt new ways of doing things. So for us, a lending decision used to take weeks. It can now take a couple of minutes. But some people still feel comfortable in the paper and the pen and the old way of doing it. So actually for us, the digital transformation, the technology bit is actually the easier bit. It's the adoption piece and getting everybody ready to use it and comfortable. That's the difficult bit to crack.
It's a good point, so really to get the people with you along, and technology is already here, but you need to have some people to actually push it through, and you need to get them on the journey as well. How do you see?
I think just on that point as well, I think the adoption and the education is massive. And I think for us as well, certainly with clients and also internally, it's almost testing and proving it as well, in terms of you're telling your staff or you're telling your clients it will improve efficiencies, it will make things better. You need to test and prove it. Once you've done that, you will get the buy-in. From a kind of client side as well, I think one of our kind of always having to sort of look after really is also what else your clients are using that you need to plug into. So from a kind of a digital transformation point of view there, we were with Chicago Fire last week, and they basically used 16 software packages to run their first team. We were just one of those software packages. So we obviously need to make sure that what we're doing is servicing the client that can then connect into pretty much everything else that the client's actually using. Bring that back into the consumer, you've got things like smartwatches, you've got things like iPhones. It sounds daft, but it's making sure how your consumer is using that information dictates how you're kind of putting it in. So just keep that in mind, really.
What about the biggest opportunities? Where can technology actually take us? What do you think, Gareth? You both from event space, but now also your own startup.
I think it depends on every single business. As human beings, we always have the tendency to try and overcomplicate things. We look at digital transformation as being this big thing which will either turn a company around or try and give it that big competitive edge. I think if you base, regardless of what you're trying to do, if you bring it right down to what actually is going to help a business be successful, and the digitization piece is what you're going to do over the next year to try and improve your services and maybe improve a bit of customer service. But the transformation piece is that bit that's going to give you that edge over your competitors over maybe a 3-year or a 5-year period. But I think we try to overcomplicate things. We bring in the consultants who come in and they brand something digital transformation. They ask for 5, maybe 6 figures for the pleasure of doing so. And I guess we just create a lot of unnecessary complication. Whenever if we boil it right back to things like financials and analytics and what's the data telling us, that's going to, and customer trends and where that's going. That's a little bit the way I would look at it. We were very fortunate. I know Trevor knows the guys at Dawson Andrews here. They're an agency based in Belfast. And they've got a simple model where the tech piece always comes second. Their bit is getting in, looking at the financials, looking at the analytics, and then saying, right, where do you want to go? And then the technology becomes the enabler. It doesn't become the driver for it.
How do you see it, Trevor?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think as Gareth said, for us, the data management is going to be very important. It's been important for us in order to produce those strategies as we move forward. But I think the data models are going to be re-engineered. One of the examples I give is for a train company whose passengers are supplying their revenue via fares. Their data on their passengers at their starting points, their origins, destinations, when they travel, how often they travel, is probably going to become more important and more valuable to that company than their fares may be. And that's something that we realized early at GSMA. Rather than selling our data, we are now able to use that data in order to give a better experience to our attendees and exhibitors, improve networking. Once they're happy, then they'll come back. So.
I think that, going back to the barriers a little bit, I think one of the biggest barriers is understanding that not everything has to be digitally transformed. Everybody's pushing automatically, and Gareth just mentioned it perfectly. A lot of these technologies in high places and big companies are just spending whatever they need to spend just to digitally transform something. And not everything needs to be digitally transformed. So I think the first thing as a barrier that companies need to fight is getting aligned with the business. The more we understand that every business can be a technology company and that every technology company can be a business, the more we start understanding how we apply those differences and those technology impacts, new impacts into the commercial market. And I think that's the biggest one that I'm seeing across 50 different clients. And it's a difficult one, So,
Vicky, you already touched a bit upon where does it actually leave our human capital? Because we need people as well. Can you just elaborate a bit on that? So, how does it affect our people in the organisation once we really move drastically digitally, whether we should or not? So we can always question that. Not everything should be digitalised, but where does it actually leave our staff, and how do we maintain our human capital in a valuable way?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if we break it down maybe to existing staff and new people, then we need a combination of both. Digital isn't a mean to an end in itself. So for us, how we position any transformation is for the benefit of the customer. And the way to do that is through digital. And I think then employees and staff really can get behind the change because they can see the benefit for the customers in reduced time to execute, less errors, you name it. And that's also good for the staff in that they have more time to spend with customers. So I think there's very much a positioning around digital transformation that it's really to do with making things easy for customers. Then I think it's about bringing in new talent. We're in a very historically traditional industry, and we have been in Danske Bank on a big hire to bring in new talent and new partnerships, because it brings fresh thinking, new relationships, which is transforming us as an organization. So one of the best examples for us has been we recently launched a fintech hub in the ground floor of the bank in partnership with Catalyst, so the Catalyst Belfast Fintech Hub. And the idea behind that was if we don't change our thinking, then we're missing an opportunity. So we've got entrepreneurs now working in the ground floor of the bank, working on their business ventures. Those people are learning from the traditional bankers, but also the people who are in banking for a long time can learn from the entrepreneurial spirit. So we're trying to blend the best of new thinking and old thinking, and hopefully that will set us on the right path.
And from your perspective, Giancarlo, when you go from like an external point and go into an organization, this is very internal and out. How do you see it when you actually work with some of your clients and talk about their digital transformation or journeys or opportunities?
Right. So again, it's we are a very realist company, right? So we wouldn't recommend, there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of consultancies that would just recommend digital transformation, to recommend something to have a 12-month project that is going to cost, somewhere around $1 million to $2 million just to get something going, right? So again, I think it is important to be honest and to recognize where your client does have an opportunity to do something fundamentally different to what they're doing. And then recognize where there's only an opportunity to digitize, right? And a lot of what you're saying in the bank is digitization is absolutely necessary. Transformation, not every time, right? So I would just say, like, the action item to this is combine the business stakeholders with the technology stakeholders, and then fundamentally think about what's going to drive the business into the next generation of the same business, right? And because talent is scarce, is difficult to find, so use the talent in the best way possible, either from a consultancy, internally, wherever you're getting your talent, make sure that you're going to use it very properly. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of money. Nothing matters, because, you just can't have more talent than the one that is available, right?
Yeah.
So.
And how is it in a smaller company like or just born digital? Do you see some of the same barriers from?
I mean, just to go back to your question about how it's going to impact staff, really, for me, it's all about it's maximising efficiencies in how you do things. And once you do that, everyone's working smarter, not so much longer, but smarter. They're working smarter. That'll then give you the platform to scale. So for me, it's a case of get everyone tighter, get everyone more efficient. That then allows you to scale. So that's what we've done as a business as well, in terms of as you learn to go to what is now 61 countries with 500 clients, it's how we're sort of processing, how we're doing things digitally, to sort of make sure, right, what needs to be done, scale that, and then grow, basically.
I think for us, it's, technology is not going to digitally transform. You flip open your laptop, and as smart as Siri might be, she's not going to tell you how to transform your business. So for us, it's around the human capital. And within our company, like Andrew and myself, our thing is to hire people that are smarter than us. So you've got the good buff-looking guy, and then you've got Andrew, and then we've now hired out the rest of the team. Sorry, that joke didn't work. Anyway, so we need to hire a team. So we've got a team. We're our digital transformation. How we're going to continue to transform sport, if you like, elite sport, is through the talent that we have in the team. And whether it be Danny, Rachel, Colin is there, Matthew, Maxie, Emily in our team, we're hoping that they're going to bring that knowledge to the fore. Andrew and myself talking to the market, we learn new things, but for us, the customers are going to tell us what it is we need to do, but then our talent itself are the people that are going to bring that to the fore through mechanisms hopefully we can create that allows us to keep being better at what we do.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's a similar sort of thing, and just going back to some of the barriers. I mean, we realised quite early on that legacy systems was a real problem for us, and departments being siloed. Those departments using legacy systems that didn't want to get rid of them. And a fundamental part of the digital transformation is how teams work together. And so we worked on that. And then the teams quickly realized that those legacy systems had to be retired, and we had to look for new products. that were going to help us achieve that strategy. And as part of that, we hired the right people. Data analysts was important to us, data scientists, developers too. And what we found was we found hidden talent within our staff and our people. And we nurtured that. We mentored them. You believe how many people are developers within a company or want to be developers. So we took them in, and they sit with us and my team, and they develop with us. We teach them, and the ideas that they have help our strategy moving forward. So. Yeah.
That's really interesting that it's not just about transforming organization or digital transforming, it's also transforming mindsets and people to actually make them prepared to new jobs or new ways to work. That's really interesting.
I think also as well on that, and just to pick up on Gareth's point as well, it's the human element that goes with it as well. I think that's what you're trying to say as well, weren't you? Just in terms of certainly.
What do you mean trying to say? It was not very articulate.
No, you were there. You were there. So just in terms of that kind of, obviously from our standpoint, the same for Gareth as well. You're trying to go into people and tell them the wonders of technology and what it can do for you as a business, but it needs that individual to do that, and it's still that ability to sort of speak to people in a professional manner. Which kind of shouldn't be lost as well. You might have the best product in the world. If someone can't explain it to its fullest potential, it's going to be rendered useless.
Yeah. That's a really good point. So if we get a bit dreamy, now you know how the situation looked like, but if you kind of imagine, okay, where do you think the technology is in your field, in your industry, and we need to touch a bit upon it, where do you then think we are in 3 to 5 years? If we talk about banking, where are you 3 to 5 years?
I think one of the guys touched on legacy systems, and that probably is a big differentiator in banking. You have brand new banks like the Monzos, like the Revoluts, like the Starlings, who have got brand new technology and speed to market. And then you've got traditional banks who are traditionally working with legacy systems which are cobbled together. So you might think, well, actually the new banks have all the advantages, and they probably do from a technology perspective, but the old banks have all of the customer relationships and all of the experience. So there's going to be a really interesting shift in banking going forward, and to see how the traditional banks can learn from the new players, and a little bit of vice versa. The other big thing that's happening in banking is a complete opening up of the data, something that's called open banking, which means everybody can bring technology solutions to customers, and that can only be fantastic for consumers. So I think it's a space that's really going to change, and I think that could only be good for customers.
What about you, Trevor, in the event space, and where are you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm still excited by IoT and voice. And I think the two will be developed in tandem. I have an 11-year-old son at home who has autism. And as part of my development work, we were dealing with voice and Alexa and Google Home. And quickly realized that if I tried to automate some of the processes at home for Ethan, he would use them. And it was a real eye-opener for me to see him using Alexa to cheat at his homework as well. But that was then taken and passed on to what we now do with our delegates and our attendees at the events. More voice, more IoT. I believe it's like 50 billion connected devices within the next 3 to 5 years. So there's a real passion for that at the moment. So.
What about in the sports industry?
For us, it's personalisation for the elite athlete. So you have a lot of solutions, and Ian, back this up, you have a lot of solutions which are very much focused on giving the club what it needs to be able, well, coaches or practitioners to help the players perform. But there's very little that's there for the individual player itself. So if you imagine Kairos sits in the middle, we provide the players with an idea of what's happening within the club from a day-to-day basis that's relevant to them. But then what we want to do, we want to become the sole interface between club and player. So all the other various solutions, we want to bring them in a really simplistic way and then present that to the players. And like Andrew would joke about how smart rugby players are compared to soccer players. So there's a challenge there for us in terms of how do we really simplify that. And one of the projects we actually have with Stat Sports at the moment, and Manchester United Football Club, is working with them to personalise the GPS data and bring that through the Kairos app, through the event that exists, the training session, and be able to present that to players in a really timely manner after a training session. So that's part of some of the stuff that we're working on to try and create that from the outset.
And that's all down for us as well, because I touched on before about working with other kind of software to make sure it's right for the client. For us, I mean, it's 3 to 5 years, you're sort of saying what's going to happen. It's one of those whereby we're in the professional sports, so sports science is ever evolving. What is considered the right diet or the right distance or the right tactics is ever evolving. So we're just trying to keep up with that and then make sure the technology fits with it. The race for gold in our industry is kind of like an indoor solution. So at the moment, obviously, it's GPS, so it doesn't work indoors. But what we work off is like a kind of an algorithm to kind of give like a pretty accurate kind of result. Well, that's what we're all sort of chasing down in our industry, basically.
And do you see any differences with your B2B and B2C focus?
Yeah, sorry, that's very much B2B focus. In terms of the consumer standpoint, I mean, we're working hard with Groundswell based in Belfast as well, just in terms of the education piece that is required. The kind of foundations that we're now being given through the likes of Google, YouTube, and Facebook, that's constantly ever evolving as well. So it's up to us as a supplier to the consumer to basically keep up with it, but also stand with what's relevant. I mean, we've all been through those kind of years whereby QR codes are going to be the next big thing, augmented reality is going to be the next big thing. It's making sure that when you do press go, basically, it works for the client. If we all think it's cool, so what? If the client doesn't buy it, don't bother.
Yeah. And for you,
so I think the real discussion is what's going to happen probably in the next 12 to 24 months. I think 3 to 5 years is really difficult.
Long time.
But I think in a sentence, it's a connected world, right? So we have, you mentioned Alexa, you mentioned Open Bank, but really is how are we using those platforms with what's already out there and the third-party applications that can be created to get connected to it. I think that's more than big data and sensors and IoT and like whatever you want to, predictive analytics, everything. All those are going to be used internally by different applications. The bank is going to need predictive analytics on your spending, and sports the same way, and like an event like this is going to need sensors everywhere. But how can we use third-party applications that other companies create to get a better experience with our customers? And in the banks, it's already happening, and it's happening quickly. Where they buy external wallets, they connect to different lending services, they can and so they're bringing a lot of different information to the same consumer, and I think that's where it's going to be the biggest impact.
Do you see any differences now? You work with a lot of different industries. Do you see
And that's where I see the connectedness, right? From cancer diagnostics to banks, everybody's trying to open up their data to be able to connect in a better way, right? Like you mentioned it now, like from the stats that you provide to the schedules of an elite athlete, then those are information that need to be shared. And so the same company doing those two is going to take way longer than a third-party company doing something on top of something that is already built, right? So I think that's what a lot of companies are looking at right now, partnerships in that space.
Well, thank you so much.